Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of the EFL Betting Show, here with myself, Matt Hill, and Gab Sutton, our EFL expert, who certainly lived up to his title on the first betting show of the season. Gab selecting two winners from his three selections, which puts him a 0.71 point profit to start the season. Good to see those green numbers on the screen over on oddsnow.com for Gab. Unfortunately, I couldn't follow suit. It was a blank for me, three losers. So work to do. I've been, hard at the form book trying to put things right. It is difficult early in the season to back things with much confidence. But you'll notice in my prices this week, Gab, I've gone a little bit shorter. Maybe just dented confidence, trying to build myself up again. But no, great start for you. And yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah, thank you. Happy with that start. Really, I think. Obviously, Doncaster-Exeter was quite a low-scoring game, as we expected. Great start for Doncaster, of course. A little bit disappointed to miss out on the that Aaron Connolly goal for Leyton Orient. Obviously, a great win for Huddersfield last weekend, wasn't it? So, but of course, this week we've got more options available to both of us because it's the Championship starting. Really excited about that kicking off at St Andrews tonight. Birmingham City against Ipswich, a big game. You feel, in terms of two teams with real aspirations this season. So yeah, very exciting as the full EFL fixture schedule kicks off.
Certainly is, yeah. As you mentioned, a bit of a truncated start last week. We had League One and League Two to get stuck into. We've got the full complement of the three divisions this weekend. You've already touched on a couple of potential title hopefuls in the Championship there, meeting tonight in the form of Birmingham and Ipswich, Gab. But as we dive into our first picks this week, we're both aligned here. We're both going slightly different angle, but same selection here. So I'm going to let you go in first. We're both backing Southampton to get the better of Wrexham. I'm going for Southampton to win with under 4.5 goals in the match, which just boosts it up to evens. You've gone for the straight win at 8-11, but we're both obviously seeing this the same way. So I'll let you kick off again. Saints, they're second favourites in the betting for the title this year. Obviously coming down from the Premier League, Wrexham coming up from a League One. There's a massive gap to bridge there. And I'm guessing you're feeling that at this stage, that gap is going to be too big.
I think so, yeah. I think Wrexham are obviously a global name for obvious reasons, but I think that slightly skews the fact that as much as they have got that external investment, and they've shown it this summer with signings of Josh Windass and of Lewis O'Brien, Nathan Broadhead's coming in as well. I still think that they've got a team that's been recruited to kind of do a job at the lower levels. And because they've gone for those experienced players at the lower levels, it means that now that they've got to the higher level, at the Championship, they're going to need a bit more work in terms of evolving the squad and building a squad that's Championship ready. And I think that's going to... Now, when I say Championship ready, I think they've got more than good enough players to survive comfortably in the Championship, and I expect them to be lower mid-table. But I do think that there's parts of the 11 that probably... in time they'll want to upgrade, and I think it's a multiple phase. It's going to take several phases. That, and meanwhile, you've got a Southampton side who just do have that top end quality. So they've got the likes of Tyler Dibbling and Matheus Fernandes, who stood out in the Premier League last season, and they've got a manager in Will Still, who's a very exciting appointment as well. So yeah, I expect Southampton's quality and depth to prevail in this one. And but talk to me about your angle, Matt, because I know you've gone with the under 4.5 goals, which basically excludes the possibility of this being a real goal fest. But I do like your way of approaching it as well.
Yeah, I just think it nudges it up quite significantly from 8-11 up to even money. And I don't really see a world where this will be a goal fest. I think that maybe Wrexham's sort of free scoring in the lower tiers has been factored into this a little bit. But I just don't think that's got to translate over to the Championship. I see this as a game where Southampton are going to dominate possession. Wrexham are going to have to look to pick them up and maybe make the best of set pieces. But I agree with you. I just think there's a big gap to bridge here. Premier League and League One is like worlds apart, and there's nothing to say that Wrexham can't be competitive in the Championship this year. But I think if you played this fixture in 10 weeks' time, I think Saints would be a lot shorter here. I think, you know, because the gap between the two would be clear, and also home advantage is going to be, you know, I think a big factor here. Southampton, I think Will's still really excited to see the impact he can make. I actually quite like them for the league at 11-2. I think it's a price that could shorten a little bit in the coming weeks, because I'm really impressed with everything I've seen of Still. I think he just comes across as a really intelligent, but also level-headed guy, not too emotionally invested, knows his process, good man manager. He's worked real wonders on quite tight budgets at his previous club, and I think he'll be relishing this opportunity. I think he's handpicked this opportunity as well. He's been linked with English clubs before. He's resisted the urge to jump in. He now comes into a club with good Premier League foundations, who are capable of bouncing back, and he could just sort of add his style to what's already there. And like you said, some promising young players in this squad. I like the recruitment. I think Downs, the American forward coming in from Cologne, could be a really good signing. Having, you know, watched a little bit of his clips, always hard to judge, but his goal record is fantastic. And yeah, I just see this as a game where Saints will show their class, controlled possession. I don't think that Wrexham are going to get rolled over by any stretch. I just think there's going to be a bit of a chasm between the two sides.
Could I just come on to that, Matt? Because looking at, I know you've gone with the under 4.5, which I certainly wouldn't, you know, put you off that angle. But if we're just going to look at the outright win prices, 8-11 best price with Betfair, I think that that's massively inflated because of the Wrexham name. And I think that if you're actually looking at the quality of the respective squads, I think you would be, you know, the prices will be more around the 4-11 than.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I think there's a bit of trepidation taking on Wrexham because of all the fanfare around them, and people are like, oh, well, don't write Wrexham off, Hollywood Wrexham. And look, Wrexham have got where they've got to on merit. It's one thing spending the money, you've still got to go and get the job done, and they've been fantastic on their rise up the pyramid. But I think that we've seen time and again, this step from League One to the Championship is a tough one. And to be honest, if you're managing to keep yourself up, Ipswich being the obvious exception, if you're managing to keep yourself up in the first season, you're doing well. The financial clout and advantage that they've enjoyed in lower divisions is now non-existent. And I do think they've recruited quite well, but I think they've recruited clearly with experience in mind, maybe realistically, I think as well, you know, just wanting to steady the ship. I don't think anyone in the background at Wrexham, maybe other than Ryan and Rob, will be thinking of promotion to the Premier League this season. I think everyone will know that that's probably a bridge too far. Whereas I think Southampton, we see it time and again with these relegated Premier League clubs, there is a constant theme happening where the same sort of 5 or 6 clubs are yo-yoing largely between the Premier League and the Championship, because when you come down, you've got the parachute payments, you've got the infrastructure, and it kind of, you just need to maintain the level shown in the Premier League to be a very good Championship side. And I think Southampton, with those solid foundations and adding a very capable coach, are just poised to hit the ground running. And I just think, I totally agree with you, to be honest. That, like I said, if this game was being played later in the season, I think there'd be a wider disparity in the odds. I think we're getting a little bit of the Wrexham hype built into their price, and I'm happy to get with Southampton.
Absolutely. I don't think much more needs to be built on that. So I think we've made great cases on both sides.
Definitely. Okay. Well, it's always good to be aligned. I feel like I'm in good company when Gab agrees with my selections. We'll dive into League One next, Gab. And you've taken a look at the AFC Wimbledon game here for your selection. I thought they made a really good fist of it on opening night against Luton, a team I'm going to be touching on with my selection. And I didn't think there was much between the sides. It was a very unfortunate own goal, ended up settling that contest in Luton's favour. But Wimbledon, we spoke time and again about them on their way to League Two promotion through the playoffs last season, being so defensively resolute. They were the best defensive team in League Two last season. There's nothing in last week's performance to make me think they're not going to be a tough nut to crack, even in League One. I think their problems is going to be, you know, creating and scoring enough goals at the other end, because I think defensively they're going to give themselves chances of being competitive in a lot of games here. You're echoing that sentiment here. 9-4 about a Wimbledon clean sheet at home to Lincoln. It does look a big price. Tell us why that took your eye.
Yeah, I think Wimbledon are going to keep approximately 14 clean sheets this season. That's the kind of rough. It might be 12, might be 15, but that kind of. I've got it's a very specific number.
14. I was going to say, where have you got that from? Have you gone through the fixtures?
Very specific number, but I think that performance away at Luton on Friday night certainly didn't kind of put me off that kind of theory that I came to before the season, because of the organisation that they displayed, because that back three of Isaac Okundere, Joe Lewis and Ryan Johnson, who, although Johnson made a mistake, you could argue he was actually man of the match on the evening, if you take away that sort of isolated moment. So I thought he was outstanding. So really solid defence. I like the look of Nathan Bishop in that he's very vocal. Didn't have an awful lot to do actually at Kenilworth Road, but he was very vocal, and he's got a great goalkeeping coach in Ashley Bays working with him. Again, generally that organisation that Wimbledon showed, making it tight. And this is a Luton Town side that were playing in the Premier League 2 years ago, and have got those parachute payments in League One. And yet Wimbledon limited them to 6 shots all game and 1 on target. I mean, that is a fantastic defensive effort. So I'm expecting, I think Wimbledon will keep a lot of clean sheets this season, around 30% of their games. So I would say in the average game, I think Wimbledon have a 30% chance of keeping a clean sheet. And I think you add the fact that this is a home game, and you add in the fact that this is against a side that don't have those kind of parachute payments that Luton do. I think a 9-4 on the Wimbledon clean sheet is great odds, just because I think they're going to be a very difficult team to get past.
And just on Lincoln, Gab, while we're discussing them, because I mean they have floated in and around the playoffs in not so distant past, but it's like you say, it's having that financial clout to really kick on and build on it. They've obviously lost a couple of their better players. Where do you see them this season?
Lincoln, again, so this Wimbledon clean sheet bet isn't necessarily anti-Lincoln. I could easily see this being a goalless draw, which is why I've gone with the Wimbledon clean sheet rather than the Wimbledon win to nil, because I don't see this as hugely opposing Lincoln, who kept a clean sheet themselves on the opening day, being Reading 2-0. I think last season was a difficult one for them because they'd lost a lot of key players from the year before, whereas this season it's more about building on top of some of those foundations that they've put in place. So in the broader picture, yes, I like Lincoln City. I do see them as a potential playoff prospect, but just I think for this game, I'm liking Wimbledon's defensive organisation, and I think they could be difficult to breach.
Okay, then. So that's a Wimbledon clean sheet against Lincoln for Gab, and that is 9-4 best price. We will be summarising our best bets at the end of the show. And if you're watching for the first time, welcome along. We we have a selection each from the Championship, League One, and League Two. So obviously we've both gone kind of the same way in the Championship with Southampton. Gab has made his case for the Wimbledon clean sheet in League One, so it's over to myself. And we touched on Luton, and obviously they played Wimbledon on opening night, got the win. They now go to Peterborough on match day 2. And I've got to be honest, I was not that enamoured with Luton's performance against Wimbledon. As good as Wimbledon were defensively, I just looked at Luton as an attacking outfit, and just it didn't seem to be clicking for me. I was amazed at how many times the ball was turned over in that match. I really thought that Luton would have a little bit more composure and class than Wimbledon on the ball, and really dominate the possession. But particularly in the second half, that wasn't the case. And as the game was going on, I was more and more convinced Wimbledon were going to get the point that they probably deserved. But a very unfortunate own goal, a bit of a freak goal, really. And Luton get the win. And, at this stage of the season, you probably take the wins whatever way they come, because nobody's at full capacity, and what you do on match day 1 doesn't impact how you finish on match day 46 all that much. However, as a backer, I see Luton odds on away from home here, and I just can't really be with that. Now, I'm not massively pro Peterborough. They lost 2-1 to Cardiff on opening day. They went ahead in that game through a penalty. They did have chances to equalise, but what came in between that, I thought Cardiff were the better team and deserved the win. They were, cutting Peterborough open a couple of times. But Posh always have this threat, don't they, on the counter? They have some incisive players, some fast forwards, and you always feel like they have a goal in them against any opposition. It's just what they do at the other end that's often the problem. But I'm seeing a Luton side here that it wasn't really clicking for them up front against one of the division's probably weaker sides this season in Wimbledon, as much as I admire them. So I wonder again here, coming away from home, do I want to be back in Luton at odds on? Not really. No. I think there is a gap between the two teams that will show over the course of the season. I think we could fast forward 3 months. Luton might be in the top 3 and Peterborough might be bottom half. But right now, Peterborough's first home game of the season, with all the attacking talent they have, I think they could cause Luton some problems at that end. And I don't think Luton look particularly ready to click at the attacking sense. I think the signing of Jerry Yates is very good for the level. Obviously, a player I saw firsthand at Carlisle in years gone by and really, really like him. Great workhorse, become a very good finisher. But, you know, expecting him to come in and you know, hit the ground running like that in a new environment, it's asking a lot. He might need a few weeks to get up to speed. And what I saw against Wimbledon was a team that it just wasn't quite clicking in forward areas. So the fact that I'm getting, you know, odds against on Posh double chance, I really like that. It's a circumstantial play. I probably wouldn't back this 6 or 8 weeks into the season, but in Peterborough's first home game and with Luton looking a little bit sluggish, happy to get the odds against on side with the draw in my favour.
I think I agree. I don't think I would put, if I was in the traders sheet, I don't think I would have Luton as odds-on favourites for this game. Just off the back of last week, I would probably have them either evens or maybe a shade of odds against. I think what I would argue, though, for Luton and maybe against going with a double chance is I feel Luton, the way they play under Matt Bloomfield, which seems to be quite about sort of penetrative vertical passing, where they like to pass forward. They like to go with precision, but they also they like to pass forward rather than possession for possession's sake. And I think that probably wasn't what they needed against Wimbledon, who are a low defensive block, but maybe against a Peterborough side who might be a bit more attacking, a bit more error prone, a bit more open. I think that we might see more of what Matt Bloomfield wants to implement at Luton. So you've got to bear in mind that what we saw last week was just one game, and you've got to give room for things to sort of level out a bit. So I'm kind of feeling like I kind of want to leave this game alone. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm not sure I'd be wanting to back Luton at odds on. But then I also don't think I would be backing Peterborough double chance at odds on, because I have that feeling that Luton might be a bit better next week, either with a bit more lose that complacency and maybe the circumstances of the match suiting them a bit more. So, yeah, I find it difficult to quite know who to back with this one.
Well, Gab, given I was 0 from 3 last week, you do have the moral high ground here to tell me that I'm making bad calls here. Yeah, so I'm not going to argue too strongly. I think when I'm looking at a selection in and around evens, I'm just thinking, do I see it with more than a 50% chance or less than a 50% chance? And I just didn't see enough from Luton last week for me to confidently say, I think they'll go to Peterborough and win this game. So I'm happy to take 2 of the 3 outcomes on side. But yes, is it something I would back further in the season? Probably not. Do I have particularly high hopes for Peterborough? Not really. But in the circumstances, that's going to be my play from League One. So that is 2 of the 3 divisions covered. We dip into the basement tier for our final 2 selections. And Gab, will go over to yourself first, where you've got an anytime goal scorer. I'm glad you've chucked one in, because I haven't this week. Like, I'm scarred from last week's failures. I've gone safe, but you've gone ambitious here. And you talk us through this one, because I think it's a really nice angle.
Yeah, so I wanted to have a dabble in League One this weekend, as I like to do one from each league, and then moving on into League Two. Obviously, Wimbledon were my pick for League One. In League Two, I've gone with Jay's Cabia to score any time at 11-4 for Grimsby Town. Now, I had a little look at some of the prices elsewhere for anytime goal scorers for strikers that scored twice last weekend, And Jamie Reid scored twice on the opening day for Stevenage at Blackpool, and he's now 15-8, whereas Cabia is 11-4. And I would say that in terms of fixture difficulty, I think Rotherham at home is fairly similar to Harrogate away. It's the fact it's a slightly harder fixture for Cabia, slightly easier opponent for Cabia, but then it's an away game rather than a home game, so kind of similar fixture. And so I think the reason why Cabia is 11-4, where Jamie Reid of Stevenage is 15-8, is because Cabia is maybe underestimated a little bit in the sense that he doesn't have that high-profile career. Like Jamie Reid has scored 20-odd goals for Stevenage a couple of seasons ago, whereas Cabia doesn't have that history. He was at Trore last season. But I think that also means that strikers that are up and coming can catch the traders out a little bit. And whereas they might get taken by a name like a Jamie Reid, for instance, they might sort of underestimate a Jay's Cabia. But he was outstanding as well as scoring 2 goals last weekend. This wasn't like does nothing all game and then scores a couple. This was consistently stretching the opposition and getting into some great positions. So I think Cabia is definitely going to be one to watch, and I think the 11-4 on him to score any time is a really nice price. So Cabia 11-4 is my pick for this weekend.
Yeah, you make a compelling case. You definitely make a good point about anytime goal scorers with up and comers, and it is an area that you can capitalise on if you're tuned in to these markets. There's certain bookmakers as well that like to go quite aggressive with their anytime goal scorer prices as well. So I'm looking at the likes of Unibet, BetMGM, LiveScoreBet. That you'll often, I would consider Bet365 a good benchmark. They're normally pretty much on the money with where I have an anytime goal scorer, whereas you can find bookmakers on certain obscure selections that are going nearly double the price. And if you keep playing the right prices, you will eventually end up in front. Gab, I don't know if you're able to just bring up the screenshot that I've added here of the odds now punters panel, but I would definitely nudge you in the direction of next one more.
I've got to scroll down to this one. There you go.
There we go. So if you haven't headed over and checked out our new oddsnow.com redesigned website, please do. We went live earlier this week. There's loads of good content on there. If you like a flutter, please do gamble responsibly. It goes without saying. But this is our punters panel feature. It comes up every Friday throughout the season. We have 5 guys giving their takes on sort of nap of the weekend, favourite that you'd want to take on. Anytime goal scorer selections do feature. I just want to give a shout here to, while we're talking about, price discrepancies in anytime goal scorers, Scott Redfern on this weekend's punters panel has put a fantastic shout up for Caleb Watts of Plymouth, who had 7 shots last weekend, scored and had a goal disallowed. And he is, with some bookmakers, he's as short as sort of 5-2, 11-4 anytime goal scorer. And with others, he's 8-1. So that just shows you the variety that does exist in these markets. Some are very quick to react to the recent data. Some are a lot slower. So, hopefully that kind of insight, head over to oddsnow.com, check out the punters panel. It's a mammoth read, so maybe do it on your lunch or something, or when you've got 10 minutes piece. But yeah, loads of betting tips in there ahead of the weekend. Love you to check that one out over on oddsnow.com. Okay, final selection for this week is from me in League Two. Again, I'm continuing my theme of trying to play it safe this week. Another slightly odds against selection. I'm going to go for Chesterfield to beat Cheltenham. I have Chesterfield as really strong contenders for the League Two title this year. I know there's been a lot of clamour around MK Dons, but I sometimes think that when a team is tried and tested, has achieved a big points haul the previous season, and has just kind of slightly built on what they already have, that's a really good formula for going again. And I'm struggling to see a way where Chesterfield won't be there or thereabouts at the top end of League Two this season. Good manager, good experienced squad, proven track record at this level. And I think that MK Dons, as much as I like Paul Warne, and I think they've made some great signings, we only have to look back 12 months ago. MK Dons went off 7-2 favourites for the league, finished 20th. So there is a little bit of an unpredictability factor there as Warne tries to shape this project in his image. They've had a lot of clean sheets in his early games, but they've also had a struggle to score in his early games. So I think there's a little bit of a chance here for the likes of Chesterfield. It might just take MK Dons a few weeks to get up and running, and they could build a little bit of a buffer here. Spyrite's got a good 1-0 win. It wasn't a classic to start the season last week, but I think Barrow are a tricky opponent in League Two. We've seen it over the last 2 years, time and again. They get results where you maybe wouldn't expect them to. They're always difficult to beat. And yeah, I think Andy Wingsman went there, set up, probably tried to get a point. Chesterfield didn't create all that much, but still found a way to get the win. And they're taking on a Cheltenham side here who I'm fearing for a little bit, to be honest. I think I said this last season and they did pick up, but I know there's a lot of talk around a potential takeover or a change of ownership. But we've spoken about this before, Gab, and that can unstabilize a club in the short term a little bit, because it's just kind of like, what's going to happen in a few weeks' time? What's coming? Are the big changes? And you know, the resources are fairly limited at Cheltenham, and I personally have a decent gap between these two teams in terms of quality. So I'm a little bit surprised I can get odds against about Chesterfield to win this game. Obviously, Cheltenham started with a defeat themselves as well. So yeah, there's a lot of boxes ticked here for me. Odds against, more than happy to put myself in the Chesterfield camp here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I agree with you. I think great for Chesterfield to get themselves up and running nice and early. That's always nice, isn't it? I think the experience of this Chesterfield side is going to be really valuable for them. I think they've got lots of quality. I think Ryan Stirk in midfield, after a fantastic season with Warsaw last year, is going to be a great addition for them, just because the legs that he brings to this side. So yeah, I'm with you on Chesterfield. And yeah, I think and it's 10-11, is it? So not a huge price, and not a huge. It's not like they're short odds on. It's sort of
I think you can still get 21-20 actually, or you could before we started broadcasting. So it might have changed, but these markets do fluctuate. But anything around that even money mark, it's kind of saying 50% chance of Chesterfield winning this. I'd be surprised if they don't. So yeah. I'm happy to go with that. Gabba, where did you have Cheltenham in your sort of 1-24s out of interest? Because I could see them being sucked into this along with a few others.
Yeah, it's a fair shout. I've got them around the 18th mark, I think. I definitely think that it's been tough for them because they've not, the speed of the recruitment hasn't kind of happened the way some would have liked. On the other hand, they have retained the likes of Ackle, Jude Boyd, and Jordan Thomas as well, and Ethan Archer. So those three key players from last season they've retained, and so and I do like the idea of Mike Garlick coming in as new owner. I'm hoping that they're going to get rid of Gary Johnson as well, because I think he seems to be quite a destabilizing presence behind the scenes. So I'm hoping that they're going to make some changes that are going to be positive in the long run. But yeah,
to me, it's that old age case of the long-term picture looks quite bright, but the short-term might be a little bit. So I don't know. I think they might. It's still very, very early, and obviously the big advantage you have in League Two when you're struggling a little bit is there's only two going down, so you have to be pretty bad normally to actually fall out of this league, as I saw last season firsthand. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was listening to the NTT 20 podcast with George and Ali, and I think that, fantastic pod. And I think they said that they'd done a fan survey, and Cheltenham fans had predicted their team was going to finish 6th. Which, I mean, I love ambition, but I just can't really see that myself.
No, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, but anyway, we shall see. So that rounds off our picks for this week's show. What we do going forward for the 25-26 campaign, myself and Gab will have a point on each of our selections, and we'll have half a point on our weekly treble. And you could check out how me and Gab are doing across the season by heading over to oddsnow.com. If you click about us at the bottom of the homepage, you can see all the author profiles with our tipping records, and they'll either be green for profit or red for loss. I'm obviously in a loss at the minute. Gab's in a profit at the minute. Plenty of time, plenty of water to pass under the bridge, Gab. I'll get back to you. Even if I have to use my other sports tipping, like my darts tipping, to claw it back, I'll get ahead. But yeah, so do head over to oddsnow.com. Gab, before we go, let's just recap the selections, starting with yours. Talk us through your 3 again, and give us your nap as well.
Yeah, Southampton to beat Wrexham because I think they've got a far better squad, and I think the price is a little bit inflated because of the Wrexham name. Wimbledon, I've gone with their defensive organisation. I think that could be a nice little earner for people getting on side with Wimbledon in the clean sheets and under 1.5 against. I see them that there being a fair bit of that this season. I think they could be the lowest scorers in the league, but I think they're going to be rock solid, and I think they're going to have a 30% chance of keeping clean sheet in most games. And then Jay's Cabia, anytime goal scorer at 11-4. I think is a little bit inflated because maybe he's underestimated a little bit because of his profile, but he was outstanding against Crawley on week 1. So I'm putting 1 point on Southampton to beat Wrexham at 8-11 with Betfair, 1 point on Wimbledon to keep clean sheet against Lincoln at 9-4 with Bet365, and 1 point on Jay's Cabia, anytime goal scorer at 11-4 with Sky Bet. And Sky Bet also have my treble, which I'm putting 0.5 points on at 17-7.
Yeah, 17.7 to 1. That is a monster treble, isn't it? If you bring mine up, you'll see the difference. I've bottled it a little bit after last week's no-show. Southampton, I'm with you there, Gab. A point on them to beat Wrexham. I've also added under 4.5 goals in the match just to boost that price up to a double your money evens. That's available in various places. Just concur with Gab's thoughts, really. I think there's a bridge between these two sides, and I think maybe we're getting a little bit bigger than we should about Southampton because of Wrexham and all the buzz around them. We shall see. Could have egg on our faces next week, Gab, when Wrexham turn up and play them off the park, but we'll see. In League One, then, I'm taking Peterborough double chance against Luton. Probably not a bet I would take later in the season, but I think Luton looked a little bit sluggish on opening night, particularly going forward, and Peterborough always good for a goal. So I think having 2 of the 3 possible results on side there appeals. And a point on Chesterfield to beat Cheltenham at 21-20. To be honest, alongside Southampton, I'm very confident in that as well. So hard pressed, I'd make Southampton my nap alongside Gab, but confident in both of those win selections. And if Peterborough can also do the job and get a result at home, then my treble will be landing, which is a modest 6.58 to 1 at Ladbrokes, but still better in your pocket than in the bookmaker's pocket. So fingers crossed. Gab, it's been a pleasure as always. If you don't already, please do head over to the Odds Now YouTube channel and give us a subscribe on there. All the content goes on there as well, alongside plenty of other stuff. We have got content galore over on oddsnow.com with the launch of our new redesigned website. So I'd really appreciate it if you headed over there and check that out ahead of the sporting weekend. And whatever you're doing this week, please do bet responsibly and, stick to a budget and make sure that you're keeping things fun as well. We always are big advocates of that here at Odds Now. Gab, pleasure as always, mate. Enjoy your week. Are you at any games this weekend, or are you on reporting duties? Or
I'm off at Cheltenham against Chesterfield, so we'll see if your tip on the Spy Rights comes off.
Well, you didn't do me a favour with Barnet last week, did you? I said cheer them on for me, and they got beat. I mean, I don't want to dwell on my selections last week, but I think I had Tranmere under 1.5 goals. I think Colchester equalising the 88th minute. I think I had Barnet, Owen Evans in goal. I think he owes me a drink. So it was a tough start to the season, but I'm feeling good. Hopefully this week will bring better results. We shall see. Gab, pleasure as always, and thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week.